Welcome to the Becoming Ageless podcast, where we engage in extended conversations to promote a youthful biological age and improved health span. I'm your host, Robynn Fredericks, holistic and integrative health practitioner. Hello, you guys, and welcome to our new episode of Becoming Ageless. I'm your host, Robynn Fredericks, holistic and integrative health practitioner. In our episode today, which I am so excited about, we are talking about how healthy microbiome plays a role in skin aging. In fact, a new study has revealed a link between the skin microbiome and the signs of skin aging, as researchers have found that the balance between good and bad bacteria can change transepidermal water loss, which is the moisture that evaporates through the skin, as well as positive association between skin microbiome diversity and stubborn crow's feet, which, let's face it, none of us like that. Our guest today is Kiran Krishnan. He's a world-renowned research microbiologist and a health and wellness expert who aims to make complex information understandable to all of us. This is Kiran's second time for being on our show. If you missed the first one, it was one of the top ones of the season. Be sure to look for it, episode 4 from season 1. And we are so grateful for his return. Kiran has founded a number of successful health and supplement companies over the last 15 years, including being a co-founder and spearheading Microbiome Labs, which is a preeminent microbiome therapeutics focused brand. He's conducted and published several research studies in scientific journals, has published chapters in scientific textbooks and reference books, has global patents, and is a sought-after speaker on human health and the microbiome. And you can hear him on multiple podcasts like this one. One of his recent formulations is SIV, S-I-V, which is a biome balancing serum. It's a quorum sensing product that rebalances the skin microbiome, which helps to alleviate inflammatory conditions like acne and eczema, and also helps with leaky skin and aging. While I personally have been using this product for the past month, I have to say I am loving it. I don't experience really problem skin, but I am 58 years old, so aging and skin longevity are of utmost importance to me. And using this truly clean, non-toxic serum, because I test it, I have noticed just an absolute smoother texture and a more glowy look, if you wanted to say it that way. Others seem to be recognizing it as well, and I get compliments daily. I've used the serum also on small spider bites, you guys, and SIBs seem to help stop the itching very quickly and heal the bite in just a small amount of time compared to me using either essential oils or nothing at all, which I often do. So yeah, I'm a lover of this product. And for my listeners, you guys, I have procured an affiliate discount for you, which is listed in the show notes and will also be on our IG page underneath the poster for this show. I'll also list it on Robynn's Faves, which is on our website, becomingagelesspodcast.com. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I have. And get your notes ready, get your pen, pencil, paper, whatever you need, and be sure to take some notes. So now, on to the show. All right. Welcome, Kiran. I am so happy to have you on this show. This is your second time for being on our show, the first of this new season. I have to say, your last session, your last podcast with us was the greatest podcast that we have had so far. So I know people out there are so very interested in hearing what you have to say. And I have to say, I love the fact, because this is what I really specialize in, trying to break down components and make them less sciencey and make them understandable for the general public. And I know that's what you really pride yourself in doing too, because we want to get the knowledge out there and help change the lives of people. So with that, welcome.
Thank you so much. And that was an amazing introduction. I really appreciate it. Super excited about the topic today. And I think this will become super relevant to people. And like you said, it's really, really important to take complex science and break it down to a digestible, if you will, component, because that's how you empower people, right?
Right.
They always say, when you know better, you can do better. But the only way you know better is if you have the information at hand. And science is esoteric to most people. It's a difficult thing to wrap your head around. And so, and there's endless examples in history of we just did the wrong thing just because we didn't know, right, any better, and it affects us in a negative way. So yeah, it's my mission, and as it is yours, to educate and empower people, and everyone can live a better life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking Oh my gosh, all things microbiome really, but I mean, we're gonna like really gear into leaky skin and how the microbiome is communicating with the guts, the brain, and wherever you want to go with that. My focus personally is, of course, gearing on skin longevity. And guys, it's not because I don't want to wrinkle. I mean, I'm 58 years old. We're going to have some like little personality lines that show up or sitting on your face. They're going to show up. But all of those roadmaps, you don't need to have those. And not just for vanity purposes. We've got to think of cellular health. And that's what Karen's going to get into. And that's why I'm really excited. So tell me a little bit, first and foremost, about the microbiome.
Yeah. What is this thing? So it is the totality of microbes and all of their genetic elements in relation to the host. And we happen to be the host in this case. So when we say totality of microbes, we literally mean all the microbes that live in and on us. So these are bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, all kinds of different organisms. Bacteria make up the largest portion of these organisms, but nonetheless, the other ones are present and do play a role. And then the second part of it is their genetic elements. And that's a key component because their genetic elements dictate a lot of the functionality of the human system. We see ourselves as this special organism, this human being, Homo sapiens sapien, right? If we were to get biological about it. But what we forget is that we're actually a walking, talking rainforest. As a human, we're wholly inadequate to function the way we know we can function, right? Because we don't have enough genes to dictate all of the human function. We have fewer genes than an earthworm does, and yet we are the highest in the animal kingdom orders, right? We're at the top of the food chain, at top of the evolutionary ladder, and the reason for that is because we have over 2.5 million microbial genes in our system. So we have 22,000 human genes. We have 2.5 million microbial genes in our system, right? So we have 150 times more microbial DNA in our system than human DNA, which that microbial DNA confers a lot of the functionality of the human function. And just to give people another way of thinking about this, you and I, Robyn, and virtually everyone that's listening to this is about 99.9% identical in our genetics. We're only about 0.1% different.
Right.
And that 0.1% is what confers our different looks, right? Our different heights and skin color and hair color and all of those things. But the 0.1% difference makes us all very, very identical when it comes to our genetic ability. What makes us truly unique, and we all know every human is unique in many ways, is our microbiome. And our microbiome are probably 50% different from person to person.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what affords us the most unique aspect of ourselves. That's what dictates how we're adapted to the world we're living in. And it largely dictates how our outcomes look in time.
That is amazing to me. So microbes essentially are viruses, fungi, they're bugs, kind of.
They're bugs. Say that again.
They're bugs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're
the bugs that we always think about killing on surfaces. Right? We're like antimicrobial this, Clorox that, like all those bugs. Those are bugs living in us all over every part of our body virtually. And we have more of those bugs in us than we have human cells.
Yeah.
We have more of their DNA than we have human DNA. We have more of everything from the bugs than human.
So essentially, I mean, this is kind of a joke, kind of, but I mean, we are actually just a great big bug with some flesh thrown at us.
We are, yeah. Interesting. There's a more technical term for that.
Okay.
The term is called holobiome. So a holobiome is an entity that's a collection of organisms. So it's called a superorganism. So that's what we are. We're really a walking, talking rainforest. We are an ecosystem that all of these little micro ecosystems have to work together in order to function properly. If any of these systems don't function properly, if any of these little micro ecosystems, whether it's in our gut, on our skin, in our brain, in our eyes, these little ecosystems that are made up of these microbes, if they don't function properly, we start to see disease. Right. And that's where the majority of disease comes from, is a disruption in some part of our microbial ecosystem.
Right.
And couldn't be more true for the skin as well.
Right. Exactly. Now, I remember way back in the day, and I'm showing my age here, when I started nutrition back in the 90s, we always use terms like all disease begins in the guts. We did not even know that the skin had microbes, let alone the brain and the other organs. I mean, I don't know. We probably would have thought that there was something wrong with the person who said there's bugs in my brain. But where did all of this change? The information, so much of the information has changed from way back when. And it's great for you and I, or those people who are staying on top of that research. But how much research are we finding daily now that differs from 1990 or 1940?
Yeah. So there's almost close to 10,000 published studies a year on this topic, right? So if you just think about the last 5-6 years, there's been over 50,000 published studies on this topic of the microbiome as it influences our health and our function. So it is the biggest revolution in medicine and biology and science in general, in biological science at least. And we've learned more about ourselves in the last 10 years than we have in the previous 200 years combined. Right? Because we're finally seeing the other 90% of what we are and who we are. Right? Everything we've looked at so far, all of the clinical research, all of the medicine, all the medical research and all that focuses on us, our cells, our DNA, our proteins that we make, all of that is only looking at 10% of what a human is. Now that we've opened up the world of the microbiome, we're finally revealing the other 90%, and we're getting profound answers out of that, right? I mean, like really scary, complicated disease states like Alzheimer's, for example, right? Everyone is deathly afraid of developing Alzheimer's. It's a very scary disease. Parkinson's is a very scary disease. We'll come to know those kind of conditions are driven by microbes and there'll likely be a probiotic fix to Alzheimer's, right? It's mind-boggling, and we already see that with very complicated, incurable conditions like autoimmune conditions and all that you could really make huge strides in improving them just by making adjustments in the gut and other parts of the microbiome.
Right. Now, you guys, Kiran is a master researcher, speaker on all things microbiome, and I really think I encourage you, go to his Instagram page, go to his Facebook page, listen to some of the lectures. He's on podcasts everywhere talking about many different issues that people have from SIBO. I see that all the time, talking about different supplements. I encourage you to do that because you're not going to get all the information here. And, I have tried to study all things microbiome because it is amazing to me, but there are so many different little names for all the different bacteria. And I get probably not even studying that. I'm still getting my 10 articles a day on new things coming out. I'm just overwhelmed. So I'm going to point to him right here. Go to him and learn from this man, because today we're going to be talking a little bit about how the skin affects the health. And while we're taping here now today in November, the episode is actually going to air in January because I went down to have your pies and Christmas cookies and all that good kind of stuff. So now we're in January and we are geared up to get healthy. And the skin matters. Right now in November, I don't know if you knew this, Kiran, it is National Skincare Month.
Oh, interesting.
An awesome thing. I know. I just actually found that out today because of an email that was about the skin actually does matter. It does affect our brain. It does affect our guts, and our gut reflects our microbiome on the skin. And it's just all this one continuous thing. And the microbiome, while it's a bug, these guys are really, really smart in what they do. And I'm so interested to hear everything they have to say about that. I mean, even now to the standpoint that if I meet somebody who comes in my door And I get that weird feeling that sometimes we get. And we used to, I know back in the 90s, we were like, oh, I got a bad vibe from him. We didn't really know what was going on. We thought it was like a spiritual thing, but now we know our microbes can sense something about those microbes. Is that?
It is, yeah. And in the opposite direction, it's true as well, where um, if there's a compatibility with the microbes, your microbes could cause the release of pheromones that could make the other person more attractive to you or
Oh,
more
nice.
attracted to you, right? There are microbes in your system that force you to be more altruistic because they and make you get out of the house and go hug people and socialize
Right.
because they want you to interact with other people so that they can transfer from person to person.
Oh, wow.
Right. So microbes have an amazing capacity and capability of adapting to situations. I mean, they were the original life forms on Earth, right?
Right.
So they were here well before we were, and we're talking about billions of years before we were here. And so they wrote the rules on how cells communicate or how they function. And we are just merely a product of the world that they've created. And we always think of them as minuscule and small and, because you can't see them and we just can't kill them with the spray of a bottle. Right. But what we fail to understand is that our cells are made up of microbes. Inside every one of our cells is an ancient bacteria called the mitochondria. And our cells used to be ancient microbial cells that kind of came together to form human cells. And all the rules in how our cells work were written by microbes billions of years ago. So they control everything. And if we're just smart enough to realize that and then harness their capacity and capability, then we can do really well. What we know has harmed us is anytime we enact practices that harm microbes.
Right.
Anytime you harm microbes, you're really, really destroying your own system, right? A couple of examples of that is overuse of antibiotics. Yes, of course, there are times where you need antibiotics because you're sick and you need to get better. In the US, at least, even the CDC estimates that at least 50% of the antibiotic prescriptions are unnecessary. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we know we use antibiotics in agriculture. We use them with animals. It creates lots of antibiotic resistance and complications. Pesticides and herbicides, one of their primary ways in which they harm humans, cancer, and all these disruptions is because they kill microbes in your system. Preservatives and colorings and microplastics and all these things, not only are they toxic, but they also dramatically alter your microbial ecosystem. And that's what leads to disease. And so anytime we've affected microbes in a negative way, pay the price. Anytime we can support microbes, we gain a lot from it. So that's kind of the dichotomy we have to think about and think about our relationship with the microbial world. We are a product of the microbial world. So we have to embrace that.
Right. Now, I understand our skin has approximately, for an average person, about 1,000 different microbes on it.
They can, yeah. For every one skin cell that you have about 30 microbes on their skin. Right?
That's already really tiny.
It's so they're tiny, but they're numerous. They outnumber your skin cells 30 to 1, right? So mostly when you look at your skin, obviously because we don't have microscopic vision, we only see the collective accumulation of our skin cells, but we have 30 times that in microbes, right? And the microbes are all over the place. Now, here's what's really interesting about the connection with the skin and microbes and health. So it used to be thought that the skin was a reflection of your inside. So if somebody was unhealthy on the inside, and obviously they became ill or they died from something, and their skin wasn't attractive from the outside, it looked very aged and so on. The thinking was, well, yes, because the skin is a reflection of the inside. So clearly they were unhealthy on the inside. That's why their skin looked like that. And this is why they're sick. There's a number of studies that have now changed that view. And that's why this conversation becomes so important. Now we know that more often than not, the skin becomes dysfunctional first and then drives the internal disease process. Right. And this is where this idea of leaky skin comes from. Right. So the microbes on the skin change. That changes the structure of the skin. As the structure of the skin changes, not only does it protect you in many different ways because the skin is supposed to act as a barrier. It starts to get dismantled. We'll talk about exactly how it gets dismantled. And through that dismantling process, not only does it not act as a barrier, it's leaking, meaning toxins and all that in the environment leaks through. It's also eliciting really dysfunctional immune responses, not only in your skin, but systemic as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So that's kind of the process that happens when it starts with a change in the ecosystem on the skin. And keep in mind that different parts of your body have different types of ecosystems. So your face and your neck, which are considered to be sebaceous tissues. So these are the oily parts of your body, right? They have a different type of ecosystem because they tend to have high levels of microbes that do well in oil and anaerobic environments. So your skin has all these pores that can get clogged up with oil. And so you end up with an anaerobic environment, meaning no oxygen, right? And so you've got a lot of bacteria that live in an anaerobic environment, even though it's oxygen rich, environment outside. On many of these little nooks and crevices in your facial and neck skin, you have anaerobic bacteria. Now on your dry areas of your skin, like your forearms, your lower back, your legs, you have completely different microbes that exist there because these are not anaerobic environments. These are more diverse areas. The most diverse part of the microbiome on your body is your feet, as you can imagine, because it's touching the ground. You're picking up lots of microbes on there. So there's different types of microbes on different parts of your skin. And when those microbes, the native microbes shift, it changes what part of your skin looks like, functions like, and how healthy it is. And then, of course, it can drive disease process too.
So do microbes, are they like the starts of the common immune system? Or like a viral virus or something wafting through the air?
Yeah. So when you think about the immune system, one thing that's really important about the immune system, we, of course, make our immune cells. So in our bone marrow, in our thymus glands, we make our immune cells. These cells, think of them as equipment that a military would have. These are tanks and helicopters and jets and missiles and all, right? So it's equipment to defend the body. The problem is that equipment is made without any intelligence as to who the enemy is, right? So the immune system has all the capability in the world, but no intelligence. It has no general to tell it that's the enemy. Don't attack this, because keep in mind that it's really important for an immune system not only to protect the host and attack the things it needs to, but it's equally important that the immune system doesn't attack things that it shouldn't attack, right? And we see it all the time when an immune system, in an unfavorable way attacks things. It starts with allergies, asthma, autoimmune conditions, and so on. Those are all dysfunctions of the immune system attacking things that it shouldn't be attacking. And so what we need is this immune system that learns what is the enemy, what it should be tolerant of, what is normal, what's harmful. That all of that communication is done by the microbiome. So the microbes tell the immune system that the commensal friendly microbes that are part of your ecosystem, they are the ones that train your immune system to understand what to attack and what not to attack. So that same thing occurs on the skin. When you have the healthy, right balance of microbes on your skin, these microbes are communicating to the immune system just below the skin that, hey, we don't need to pay attention to this. This thing falls on the skin all the time. It's pollen. It's in the air. It can fall on the skin. You don't have to attack it, right? Versus somebody that has a dysfunctional skin microbiome, when something like pollen or ragweed falls on the skin, the immune system under the skin wants to attack it, and the microbes aren't telling it not to. So then that individual is going to get itchy, scratchy, dryness, right? They're going to develop an eczema patch. They're going to develop a dry patch. They're going to be scratching all the time. Those people have an immune system that doesn't have proper communication with the microbes. So the microbes all over your body are constantly tutoring your immune system to function in the right way.
That amazes me. And now, when we do something like use an antibacterial cleaner on our hands or washing your face with scrubbing and scrubbing like some people do, like I did when I was, 12 years old. it takes approximately 8 hours for your healthy microbiome to readjust. That's a long time. So are we kind of without any kind of protection during that time? We're just like fending for ourselves?
We have dysfunctional protection of that, right?
Okay.
So let's say you do have a relatively healthy, balanced skin microbiome. Let's just take the arms, for
Uh-huh.
example. And then, we go to the shower and we use like a soap. And on top of that, it's an antimicrobial soap, right? So it's like added components to it to kill off bacteria. And then we're doing a loofah sponge of really, really digging in, right? And we're losing top layers of the skin where a lot of the microbes live. And we're adding an antimicrobial component to it. So we really compromise what the ecosystem of that skin looks like. Right? Then we come out of the shower, we dry off, and we put on some lotion, and that lotion likely contains preservatives and all that stuff in it, right? So then now we've got a preservative layer on the skin on top of having killed off a bunch of beneficial bacteria. So then now we go out into the environment, we put on our clothes and we go out. Depending what we encounter
I
in the
see.
environment, right, provides a vulnerable canvas for some sort of new outside bacteria to come in contact with that area and maybe start taking hold, right? So this is how over time your skin microbiome comes off balance because you keep harming the good guys. And then that means that in that vulnerable period, in that 7, 8 hour period that you're talking about, where the good guys need to come back, during that period, your ecosystem is vulnerable to new microbes coming on. So you might walk into a room where somebody just had strep throat. You wouldn't even know that. And they're coughing in the room. I've got streptococcus in the air. You walk in there, that strep lands on your hand, on your arm. Because your arm is dysfunctional in that way, you now have a much higher chance of strep taking hold and staying on your skin long term. Now, that's maybe the kind that if you get a little break in your skin can start infecting it, you might end up with flesh-eating bacteria, necrotizing fasciitis, right? Or you might end up with just little boils, or you might end up with really itchy areas in your scratching, and that thins the skin and causes dryness. Now you might have eczema out of that, right? So that's the process that occurs because we've developed all these routines and these products without knowing anything about the microbes on the skin. So most of those things that we do are going to be harming the microbes and making our skin vulnerable to an invasion, if you will.
Right. Right. I remember, I don't know, or like 10, 15 years ago, I used to do like the heavy acid peels
Mm.
and you let your skin flake off and you're like, whoa, getting your skin on underneath it. And you look so bright the next day or a couple days later when your skin normalizes. But then I started thinking as I like looking in the mirror, I'm like, what am I actually doing here? And I really started saying no. That's when I started digging into all of this. And now I still have friends who do that. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes.
How do you, can you remove some of these bad guys and put back some of the good guys without totally taking everybody off?
Yeah. So that's where something called quorum sensing agents come in. Right?
Okay.
And fortunately, nature has already done this for us. We just, and I've always said this in all the work that I've done in the immune system. Um, at the end of the day, we just have to be smart enough to know what nature's already provided us and take advantage of that. So there are microbes that are transient microbes. So if you look at your skin microbiome, you have really two groups of bacteria that are often on the skin. One of them are the resident microbes. So these are the microbes that almost permanently live on your skin. You can alter them, with different techniques. But let's say you have commenced the right type of bacteria. Those are your resident microbes. But you're also constantly being exposed to transient microbes.
Yeah.
These are microbes in the environment and areas in which you will encounter them physically. And then they show up on your skin. They'll spend a little bit of time, sometimes a few hours, sometimes a few days. They interact with the resident microbes and then they eventually leave. Now, the benefit of certain transient microbes is that they have a capability of doing something called quorum sensing. Quorum sensing is the ability of microbes to read each other's signatures. So they can, when they land on your skin, they can read the microbial environment and they can understand which microbes are there and at what levels. Now, some of these transient microbes are so intelligent that they know what should be there and what shouldn't be there because they've had millions of years of co-evolution with the human host. Right? And these are microbes that we constantly encounter in the environment and so on. And so they've learned over time what a healthy human host skin looks like. And when they land on your skin and they read the microbial environment, they go, that is not the right bacteria that should be here. That's overgrown. They will actually do one of two things both most of the time, which is A, they can produce compounds, actually kill off those bad bacteria, or they will alert the immune system that, hey, this microbe shouldn't be there. You should go after it and reduce the growth of that microbe. At the same time, they can produce compounds that help the beneficial bacteria grow, right? So these quorum sensing agents are nature's answer to continuous disarray that may occur in your on your ecosystem on your skin. So when you expose yourself to these quorum sensing microbes, they fix the imbalance, right? So you don't at all have to like wipe the slate clean, knock everything out, clean it all up, and then hope to regrow the right bacteria. We've been making that mistake in the gut for decades now, right? Where we're like, kill, kill, kill. If something's off, we're like trying to kill everything, antibiotics, antimicrobials constantly with the hope of somehow reseeding it in the right way. And it almost never works.
Right.
Because the more you kill, the more you set up an opportunity for more dysfunctional microbes. Right? So it's like having a garden with a bunch of weeds in it, right? Just going out and killing those weeds and not doing anything else will likely yield more weeds growing in the short term, right? You have to get in there with an intelligent farmer or a gardener who can get in there and actually pull out the weeds and specifically plant and then the soil and all that in it. So that's what those transient quorum sensing microbes do.
That's amazing. Kind of like, we walk into a party and we read the room. So that's exactly what these guys are doing. I love that term. So just as an example of all of that, probably about a month ago, you guys, you're going to laugh on me, but I was using a new lip liner that I just loved the color. It was amazing. You girls out there understand this. And I got a pimple. I got a single little pimple right on my lip. And I thought it was a clean product. And I'm looking at this thing like, holy cow, where did this come from? I go back and read the ingredients and I'm seeing a preservative that I know better than to not have on my skin. And immediately got rid of it. But I'm just like, okay, now what do I do? And Karen, I started downing more lemon water, more the microbiomes, started taking a lot of these and making sure everything else that was on my table in my bathroom is super, super healthy for my skin. And I just let it ride it out and let my microbes kind of take care of it. I just had to make sure that I gave my body the right tools.
That's right. Given the right environment, your microbes and all that will find a way to balance out, right? That's what the ecosystem tends to want to do. And nothing affects change better than other microbes.
Right.
And that's what we've seen in the world in decades of research done and work that we've done, that when you're trying to rebalance the microbes because they're out of balance and you're dealing with a lot of symptoms as a consequence of that, the best way to do it is to introduce the right microbes into the system that can rebalance it for you.
Right.
And absolutely true with the skin as well. If you think about how we're naturally supposed to function, right? We spend a lot of times outdoors. And over the course of evolution, our skin and our skin microbes have adapted to encountering microbes in the outdoors, right? In dirt, in the wind, and in rivers and streams and things like that. Now, within those microbes that we encounter outdoors, come into contact and build a relationship with certain quorum sensing microbes that are present in the natural environment that help balance our skin. We know that, people have been doing things like mud baths and, rubbing clay on themselves and all that stuff for centuries, knowing that it was a good thing for your skin. A lot of that, what it's doing is basically exposing your skin to quorum sensing microbes on the surface, right? So that is the most effective way of continuously rebalancing your skin, because if you don't balance the microbes in your skin, we'll end up with something called leaky skin, which on its own is an independent risk factor for chronic disease. And this is chronic diseases outside of the skin, right? It can drive other chronic diseases internally as well.
Okay. Now, can you explain a little bit about leaky skin and does that have anything to do with leaky guts? And what can we do about this thing?
Yeah, so leaky skin and leaky gut are very similar in that both the skin and the lining of the intestines are both barrier structures, right? They prevent things from going through that shouldn't be going through. In the case of skin, it's actually a two-way prevention, because not only is your skin trying to prevent things from going through from the outside inside, it's also trying to prevent things like moisture from leaving the inside of the skin to get evaporated on the outside. Okay. So the skin is a two-way barrier, and I'll explain how that works. The gut is generally a one-way barrier of nutrients coming in. We need to let those through, but we also don't want toxins and bacteria and viruses and all that coming through.
Right.
So both of them are barrier structures, and both barrier structures, like every other barrier structure in the body, are controlled by microbes. Microbes are the guards and the checkpoints within these barriers. And if you have the wrong microbes in that space, the barriers are open.
Yeah.
And things become leaky. So that biological concept, leaky gut and leaky skin, are very similar. Both of them lead to chronic low-grade inflammation, which in both cases is a major driver of chronic disease, right? So you can have leaky skin and that causes chronic inflammation in the body. That leads to disease, or you can have leaky gut that causes inflammation in the body, and that leads to disease. More than likely, you have both, because leaky skin will likely drive leaky gut, or leaky gut will likely drive leaky skin, because inflammation on both sides are to disrupt the microbial ecosystem and the function, right? So let's talk about leaky skin and what that looks like. And this is a relatively new concept, so you're probably hearing it here for the very first time. The skin is a very interesting barrier, right? You've got multiple structures to the skin. You've got, just in general, the dermis layer and then the epidermis layer.
Mhm.
So if you've ever seen a schematic of the skin, you'll know that you've got these squamous structures of cells. So these are multiple layers of cells that look like bricks, if you will.
Right.
And then as you move up, many of those cell layers are dead cells, right? So they're just acting as a physical barrier to stop things from moving through.
Mhm.
Now, below, as you get lower below the epidermis, now you're in the dermis area, and you've got a lipid structure called a ceramide structure inside the skin as well. So right below the epidermis, you have the ceramide lipid structure. So it's all fatty acids,
Mhm.
right? The purpose of that is ceramides prevent moisture from leaching out of the skin through evaporation, because water and oils don't mix. So no matter how hot it is up here, no matter how much the sun is pulling water to try to get it to evaporate, if you have a healthy ceramide structure, the water gets trapped against it and it stays in the skin. So
Okay.
it maintains moisture in the skin. If you deal with dryness of the skin, and dryness of the skin is a very known characteristic of aging of the skin. As you age, your skin gets drier and drier. The reason for that is because you start to break down the ceramide structure in your skin. You no longer have a complete lipid barrier. You have too many areas of the skin where water can evaporate and leave, right?
Mhm.
So that's one of the key barriers. Now, that lipid structure, not only does it prevent water from leaving that way, it also prevents toxins from entering in, because most toxins are oil or lipid soluble, right? Which means that when they hit the skin and they're starting to penetrate through, they get trapped in the ceramide region, and they're not allowed to pass through into circulation. So that's a very important part of the barrier structure of the skin.
Right.
Now, around the ceramides, and you have all these different types of skin cells. You've got your melanocytes, right, that produce melanin. That's the color that we're all used to. You've
Mhm.
got different proteins like collagen and elastin that maintain the tautness of the skin, the structure, the physical structure of the skin. All of those things are dependent on the microbes that live on the few layers of the skin. Now, why would they be dependent on that, right? So there's a few different things. Number one, the microbes on the top of the skin, if you have the right microbes, are constantly communicating with the immune system and telling the immune system not to attack stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because you're constantly coming in contact with things when you're walking around in the outside environment. If you just walk down the street, unless you're clothed from head to toe, your skin is getting exposed to hundreds upon hundreds of molecules just from the plants and grasses and the trees and the birds and everything else, right? You're interacting with all of these compounds. Now, your immune system constantly wants to, but it's the microbes on the skin that are telling the immune system, hey, ward off. We don't need to fight this thing because we don't need the inflammation,
Right.
right? Now, if you have a dysfunctional microbiome on the skin, one of the first things that starts to happen is communication between the microbes and the immune system starts to falter. That means every time you encounter something in the outside environment, your immune system tends to attack it and your skin becomes more and more inflamed.
Right.
And as the skin becomes more inflamed, you start to get a dismantling of some of the collagen and elastin fibers because inflammation damages tissue. You start to get a dismantling of some of the ceramide structures. So now you're losing more water. So now not only is your skin more red, it's also more dry. And if it's more dry and more red, one of the things that happens is it starts to thin. You start to lose layers in your epidermis, which means that your skin becomes thinner and thinner, more translucent, and you can and just doesn't feel that same thickness. It doesn't have the same resilience. All those lead to things like fine lines and wrinkles. And then because we're constantly absorbing UV radiation, blue light radiation from the screens and so on, our melanocytes, which pick up all of that radiation and protect you against producing melanin, those melanocytes undergo lots and lots of oxidative stress, right? They're producing free radicals and getting free radical damage. Normally, a healthy skin barrier helps curb some of that free radical damage. But now as your skin's getting thinner, drier, more wrinkly, loss of collagen, elastin function, loss of ceramides, changes in microbial ecosystem, increased immune response. Now that free radical damage increases over time, and then your melanocytes start becoming senescent. Senescent means that they're just dormant zombie cells and they start producing lots of melanin without actually turning over and repairing. Now you're starting to get hyperpigmentation, ink spots, right? You're starting to get heterogeneous pigment throughout the body where you don't have uniform color anymore. You've got different shades of different colors all over your face and your arms and all that. So those are all characteristics of aging and aged skin, which starts with dysfunction in the microbes in the skin. And ultimately, what that all leads to is systemic inflammation because things are allowed to leak through. And then your immune system already goes into attacks, and that will start translating throughout the body and create systemic inflammation going beyond that local region.
Right. And so is this part of where our skin microbiome is communicating with the gut, the brain, the lungs, the eyes? I mean, it communicates with everything.
Every, yeah, so
Yeah.
the immune system that's triggered in the skin because of a dysfunctional skin microbiome, that immunity is also then picked up by the immunity. So there's a singular mucosal theory, right? So underneath your layer of your skin, you've got a mucosal surface, which is connected to the mucosa. And when the mucosal surface in your skin is undergoing lots of inflammatory responses, that actually creates more inflammation in the lining of the gut. And in fact, that panics and the gut goes, oh my God, we've got an inflammatory invasion because one of the key barriers in the body is being broken. And so the gut starts recruiting more inflammatory cells to try to send to the skin at some point. But in the meantime, as it's accumulating it, it's damaging the gut as well.
Right.
And then because your skin doesn't look good, it's itchy, it's uncomfortable, your gut feels weird because now your gut is inflamed, you end up getting stressed because of it. Then that stress creates more dysbiosis on the skin and in the gut and more inflammation in both regions. So it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I can so totally see that. Now, okay, so what happens? Like, okay, so as you guys know, back in February, I hit my head. I got a whiplash back here, got nicked my cerebellum. all kinds of things happened. I was in the hospital for a month and then I did nothing for a month because while I was in the hospital, my entire habits, all of my habits were just basically thrown out the window. They had me on meds, they had me on machine. Um, I didn't watch my face for probably 2 months. I don't even know what all I was exposed to. Didn't even know when it was daylight outside. I actually called my husband. You laugh, Karen. I called my husband at 3 a.m. and thinking it was 3 p.m. And I'm like, where's my breakfast?
Uh,
I was so confused.
uh,
But during that time, thank God, before all of this happened, I had my nutrition on par, my skincare on par. Everything was going where it should be. An accident happens and my body goes down, everything, inflammation. My body's freaking out because there is this literal hemorrhagic bleed going on. And I noticed with my skincare, it started going down. And in the back of my mind, I knew it's going to come back as I come back. But what kind of thing was happening since the accident came first and then the microbes came second as far as that activity?
yeah. Well, I think part of it is because you were in the hospital. Being in the hospital-like environment, which is overtly sterile, and because it's too sterile, it actually lends itself to having a higher propensity for pathogenic organisms that do well in a very sterile environment. And this is why you have hospital-based infections. And they were probably using harsh antimicrobials to clean parts of your skin, you know, doing any procedures and things like
Right.
that, bringing the IVs, they're cleaning your skin with these things. And then you're in contact with things like the hospital gowns and bed sheets and all that are washed with very harsh chemicals. All of these things have a very negative impact on your skin microbiome. And because you probably didn't go outside for a period of time, you didn't get any normal exposure to microbes on the outside, any of those quorum sensing agents that we talked about. Most of your exposure is indoors in one of the worst microbial environments there is, which is a hospital.
Right.
And then you're probably on antibiotics and things because, get any injuries and all, they're going to give you antibiotics.
Yeah.
And the antibiotics are disrupting your gut, skin, and everything else, right? So in your case, it was the incident and then the resulting, treatments associated with the incident that would drive your dysbiosis. But the good news is you spent all this time before then building a degree of resilience, which then allows you, once you start putting your system in the right environment, it allows all of that to bounce, right? Because your skin and your health and your microbiome all naturally want to move back to the state of balance. You just have to put it in the right environment.
Right. Right. I always laugh with my friends and I say, because I'm glad my body's back, my microbiome's back, it then had mine when I was no longer able to do that. And I truly believe that. I believe everything was like, hey guys, we need to fix things that are going on here. And absolutely, as soon as I was able to, I got all the microbiomes or my microbiome immediately. Um, this whole subject is so fascinating to me because we really, as a society, we need to stop looking at the skin as just a vanity mechanism. The skin is part of our health. We know that microbiomes they like certain foods, they like certain additives, they like certain things, and they dislike certain things. Can you tell us a little bit about how to feed them correctly and what we need to be doing?
To the skin itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, in general. Okay, so it starts with the microbes, right? So having the right diversity of microbes in your will help them try to control the dysfunction on your skin because you're not having a healthy gut microbiome, which means you have a healthy immune system. Immune system is going to play an important role in trying to control dysfunction on the skin, which means feeding your gut microbiome is going to be incredibly important for healthy skin for a couple of reasons. One is ensuring you have a healthy microbiome. So that means diversity in your diet, having lots of different types of foods, including lots of plant-based foods with high resistant starches, and soluble fibers and insoluble fibers. So those are and polyphenols and antioxidants, because all of these things end up translating to the skin at some point, and having those types of nutrients will feed healthy microbes, and the healthy microbes will provide support to the skin.
Right.
The other thing is the skin grows from the inside out. So if you think about the cells that make up your skin, whether it's the dermal cells or epidermal cells, in order for the cells to be healthy and be nourished, you need to be able to break down and assimilate nutrients through the microbiome, right? So if you don't have a healthy microbiome, you can't absorb nutrients. The skin doesn't end up getting the nutrients that they need. The skin gets very few nutrients from the outside in, right? Most of the nutrients it gets in order to function properly are from the inside out.
Right.
And so that's important to know as well. So we're constantly feeding our skin, and thereby feeding our skin microbiome from the inside out, right? So you have to have a healthy gut, healthy diet, or a nutrition plan with a lot of diversity. Now, on the other side, on the topical side, what we need to do, just because we don't do this much anymore, is we need to re-encounter quorum sensing microbes,
Okay.
right? And this is where the synthetic product comes in, because it's made up of two different well-known quorum sensing microbes that in their natural environment we encounter onto our skin. And so we just happen to formulate it into a product you can deliver on the skin. And what we're seeing from all the microbiome and other studies that we're doing through that is that just this product alone can help rebalance the skin microbiome. Right. So you add that to an ingestible, something that we know will affect the microbiome in a positive way that has an effect on skin. You combine with the topical use of the quorum sensing agents, and it's pretty phenomenal how healthy your skin can be.
Yeah, that sounds like it. I'm excited to try that product, and we're going to talk about that in a minute too. And there's another product out there that you have your hands all turned up into called Serene Skin. What is that doing?
Yeah, so that is a ingestible probiotic specific, and it's doing a couple of things. Number one, it's stopping leaky gut, and we know that leaky gut is a big source of skin inflammation as well, right? So you can get inflammation from the outside in, and then you can get inside out inflammation, and leaky gut's a big driver of that. So it stops leaky gut. So we reduce that inflammatory driver from the inside. Number two is it increases the diversity of the microbiome in the gut. And that, and as I mentioned earlier, has a very positive impact on the skin. A lot of it through the interaction of the diverse microbes with the immune system in the gut, and then that immune system translating to the skin in a very tolerant, non-inflammatory manner. Now, the third part is changing the types of short chain fatty acids that are being predominantly produced in the gut. We have data showing that acetate, which is one of the three main short chain fatty acids that are produced in the gut, acetate plays a very important role in modulating inflammation in the skin and in the sebaceous glands, the glands that make up the sebum in the skin. What we were able to show with that Serene Skin is we can increase the amount of acetate in circulation, which then has a huge impact on reducing inflammation or damage to the skin from the inside. Right. So Serene Skin does all of those things on the inside, sealing up leaky gut, improving the absorption of nutrients, increasing the production of acetate, and then something like Civ will make the modulations and the changes in the microbes from the outside. So it becomes a beautiful 1-2 punch.
Right. We have to feed the inside and feed the outside. I think that's so extremely important. And the short chain fatty acids, they're a major player in my little toolbook. And basically, SCFAs for short. These are basically what the microbiome down in the lower part of the gut. We're eating some of these resistant starches. And basically, you guys not to be like really excited, but basically they're just kind of doing what bugs do, and they're kind of about things. But there were sort of elements that we ourselves are unable to make. And that actually plays a huge role in our immune system and our skincare. It's helping to make sure that the microbes are staying in check or in balance, correct?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, they do numerous functions. I mean, short chain fatty acids play a role in almost every part of the body. And they're so critical. They're so critical for our immune system, for our cellular turnover, for reducing inflammation throughout the body. And like you mentioned, we don't make any of it at all,
Yeah.
right? So we count on the microbes 100% to do that for us. So it becomes really important that we're constantly facilitating the production of short chain fatty acid.
Now, can you get short chain fatty acid production going by eating, say, fast food and milkshakes?
Yeah. Not only will you not get it being produced, you'll probably reduce the production of whatever may even be there.
Okay, so we're not
You know,
first.
yeah, relatively short amount of time,
Right.
and that's part of why people become obese, eat fast food. It's not
Right.
just simple calories in, calories out thing. It's that you completely reprogram your metabolic response to when you eat foods that don't induce some sort of short chain fatty acid production.
Right. Right. I try to look at everything I put in my mouth. I mean, of course, we're going to have times where we are just enjoying life a little bit. My birthday, my anniversary are two of those times I try to just enjoy a little bit. I'm still cautious about the ingredients, and I try to look at every morsel of food, every little bit of skincare, and every single thing as a vitamin, a sort. It all matters to what's going on in our body. And if I'm going to put food in my body, I want it to count. So short chain fatty acids. We've heard cold rice, cold potatoes. Can those things be heated up again and still produce that, or do they need to be cold?
They don't need to be cold. So if you go through a couple of heating and cooling cycles, what you're doing is you're creating a polymerization of the carbohydrates that makes them more and more resistant.
Okay.
So you don't have to eat them cold. You can warm them up again and still allow for the short chain fatty acids, the resistant starches to be at higher levels. But you can also get resistant starches from things like cassava, which naturally has high levels of resistant starches. And sweet potato, of course, will tend to have naturally more than regular potatoes. Plantains will tend to have way more than a banana. And then you can always supplement with
Right.
resistant starches and fibers and prebiotics as well, which I do, and I encourage people to, because even I, with all the information I have, I find it difficult to ensure that I'm getting enough fiber and prebiotics and resistant starches through diet. Right? You
Right.
have to be like super measured, super on top of
We'll put the picture
it.
in the
Exactly. You have to be counting, I had, sweet potato, I had a yam, I had this, and then like you're looking up how much is in an average sweet potato. And so it becomes very cumbersome. So I just genuinely try to make the choice of high fiber food, high resistant starch food as a component of every meal.
Right.
But then I supplement to get myself to a given level that I know I need to. Right? Everything beyond that just becomes gravy.
Yeah.
So I know I want to have about 3 grams of prebiotics a day, right? So prebiotics are different than fiber. And then I want to have about 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day at a minimum.
Okay.
So if I just have that in my mind, then I find a way to supplement the prebiotics, and I find a way to supplement at least 50% of the fiber, then I feel confident that I'll get the other 50% from just.
I like that. Good tip there. And you guys are always welcome to Google, what are prebiotics, and you will get an entire list of foods that you can always look at. So basically, microbiomes are bugs, and they live all over us. They're on our various organs. They talk to each other. They talk to our organs. Um, they are basically what is happening with our immune system. It's talking to our immune system. And these guys, the good ones, the commensal ones, these are our friends. And we need to do our part as a human being to protect the bugs that are on us. We wouldn't be here without them, in other words. And we need to feed them correctly. We need to protect them. We need to not put chemicals on our skin or eat chemicals. I always laugh at people who say that they eat certain pesticides. It doesn't bother them. It's like, I'm glad you're not feeling an effect of this pesticide, but you're putting something in your body that kills bugs. And I really want to put in your body because we need those bugs. So it's something to think about, y'all, but still wash your vegetables. all of this really, really matters. And now I want to spend just a minute. I know we don't have you for a long time. I want to spend just a minute talking about this new product that has come out on SIM. Does that stand for anything or is it just SIV?
Yeah, so it actually originally stood for skin eye,
Okay.
as in IVs are very potent, direct nutrients that go right into the system. So the idea was that it's like the IV topically.
Right.
But then we just shortened it. I
Yeah.
just how in
Right.
use. So yeah, that's what it is, and it's a direct topical product.
Okay. And it is a straight microbiome that you're spraying on.
Yeah, so it's actually a serum, and it comes like in a dropper bottle. I wish I had the bottle with me here, but it comes in a dropper bottle, and you basically put one drop on each side of the face. For example, if you're using it on your face, and then you rub it in as kind of this almost the last thing you do each before bed, right? If you use a moisturizer, for example, at night, or if there's cleansers, toners, whatever you may be using, you would use this right before your moisturizing step. A drop on each side of the face, rub it in, face, and so on, and then you put on your moisturizer, and that's it. Once a day. Now, what's in it? These are quorum sensing microbes that have the ability of changing the skin microbiome and shifting it back to the way it should be. Done a number of case studies. We've got a 400 patient trial going on right now. And we're seeing some absolutely phenomenal things. I'll give you an example of that. We had a 21-year-old male, right, that had just massive number of acne, red, irritated acne lesions on his forehead. And so we said, okay, let's see if this can help, and we want to understand the mechanism by which it helps as well. So before ever doing anything, in the end, he didn't have routine, because he tried a bunch of stuff. Work. So he was kind of in limbo, out of routine. So we did a skin microbiome swab, and then we sent it for sequencing. And sure enough, we saw 70+% of a type of bacteria called Cutibacterium magnesis. Now, Cutibacterium magnesis is the most abundant microbe on your skin, normally on your facial skin piece. But there are certain varieties of Cutibacterium magnesis. If you have high levels, they tend to create lots of inflammation and infections in your pores, hence formation of pimples.
Okay.
So we saw that, we're like, oh, wow, okay, we need to rebalance that. So we had him use once a day for 2 weeks, right? And then we redid the skin microbiome swab, and we saw the Cutibacterium magnesis went from almost 70% to about 15%.
Wow.
At the same time, we saw over a 50% reduction in his acne lesions in 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
Right? So that just underscores power of shifting the microbes, imbalanced microbes in a given region of the body, and then correcting the dysfunction that is associated with those dysfunctional microbes. Now, this is the same thing that also impacts leaky skin, because there's a study that came out called the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging. This was a first of its kind study, because what it did is it took individuals in the 30s, and they said, we're just going to follow these individuals for the next 50 years. Normally, aging studies, what they do is they take an older population, people in their 80s, and they compare them to a younger population, people in their 30s and 40s, to understand what are the cellular and other differences, right? There's some issues there, because these people who are in their 30s haven't lived through the same stuff that these people in the 80s lived through.
Right.
So all the variables aren't the same. So this study overcame that by saying, we're just going to follow each individual on their own journey and use their 30-year-old self as a control for their now 70, 80-year-old self.
Wow.
And so it was a phenomenal study. I mean, imagine, setting up a study that is going to be 50 years long, right? And then you hope you're going to be there at the end of it.
Wow.
So it's absolutely phenomenal. I love that scientists do stuff like this. But the data we're getting out of the study is absolutely phenomenal. What they've shown in a nutshell is that age-related symptoms of the skin, so we're talking about fine lines, wrinkles, dryness, hyperpigmentation, redness, thinning of the skin, all of these things that we think of as age-related disorders of the skin, the presence and the severity of those symptoms was the best predictor of morbidity and mortality in those individuals.
That's
Their
amazing.
skin was the best predictor of whether they would develop a chronic disease and die from a chronic disease over everything else. He looked at other things like blood markers and so on. The skin was the best predictor. And in fact, in the people whose skin were aged prematurely, right? If your skin looks about 7 to 10 years older than you biologically are or chronologically are, that means your biological age is actually older than your skin puts you. So let's just look at the math for a moment, right? This is very rough. Let's say you're a 50-year-old, but your skin looks like you're 60, right? That means your true biological age is actually 70, right? Your skin is 10 years predicted, right? So your skin is giving you a 10-year future outlook to what your health is going to be like in that time. And so we paid attention to these symptoms of the skin. We're doing it purely from a vanity perspective. How we understand these symptoms of the skin, the aging of the skin, is actually an independent risk factor for driving chronic disease, right? And the reason it does that is because when the skin ages, it becomes leaky. When the skin becomes leaky, it causes systemic inflammation because of all the things that leak through. And the skin aging starts with a change in the ecosystem in the skin, right? So with Civ, our goal is to stop leaky skin. You're going to get all these other benefits. You're going to, have an anti-aging effect. You're going to have, reduction in things like acne and eczema and all these inflammatory conditions. Those are all wonderful. But the thing that we're secretly obsessed about is shoring up the barrier of the skin.
Right.
So we reduce risk for chronic illness.
Right. Leading back to skin longevity and skin health. I love that because so many times somebody has something going on with their skin. Their first thing that they want to do is to run to a doctor and get on a pill. And most of these pills are do not take if, do not take if, do not take if, and can cause this. And they're dangerous. Some of them are just downright dangerous, especially if you look at long-term studies. And so what you're saying with this, you're putting it on, it's fixing the problem, and it's making you healthier at the same time.
Right. Yeah, you're getting healthier with the side benefit of looking better.
Yeah.
Feeling, and not only feeling better, but looking better.
Yeah.
And without having to do too many harsh things to the skin.
Right.
Right. Like if you have acne, it's without having to go and get a 12-month prescription or 6-month prescription of antibiotics, right?
Yeah.
It's without having to do a 7-step routine every day to your skin to just try to keep it clean. And you're using things like salicylic acid and all of these microbials on your skin without having to do all of that stuff. You're just rebalancing the microbes so that thereby you change the structure and function of the skin. And it comes back to just the most fundamental basic functions. We would have the same effect if we lived in the outdoors like our ancestors did, and we in contact with these hormone sensing agents naturally, but we just don't.
We know.
Right? And we don't. And not only do we not do that, on top of that, we have 1,000 times more things that affect the skin in a negative way than our ancestors did. Right? They didn't have all the chemicals and pollutants in the environment. They didn't put all the personal care products on themselves like we do. They didn't use antimicrobial soaps. They didn't put all that kind of assault on the skin. And on top of that, they lived outdoors a lot and got a lot of exposure. So we have to do better. We have to not only start to reduce the things that we know affect the skin in a negative way, but we also have to rebalance the microbiome of the skin. And that's what Civ does.
That's really exciting. Do you remember, I don't know if this was you back as a kid, but I remember being a little bitty kid and running outside after rain and squishing my toes in the mud puddles. We'd make mud pies and then our hands would be all muddy and I don't want to go inside. So what do? You wipe the mud off on your skin. And I've done that since I was like probably 5 years old. And somebody makes some mud pies during it.
Absolutely. I grew up in India and Malaysia, right? So it was more different than the Western world here. We were constantly covered in dirt and mud and cow dung and things like that we encountered. And, I've can't recall, and I'm not saying this is super accurate, but I don't recall anyone having any conditions that we know of today, like eczema, psoriasis, and all like that stuff didn't even exist almost, and certainly not as prevalent as it is now with kids, right? Like every other kid I know has some degree of eczema or psoriasis or acne or, and then of course adults are getting adult onset acne, and then we know that premature aging of the skin is also a significant issue. All of that is, I think, because of our environmental exposure and our relationship with the microbes.
So now can you use sieve on other parts of the body? I know a lot of people have back acne or chest acne or things like that. You can use it anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. You can use it anywhere, which is awesome. There's no contraindications to anything else you're using skin, which is another really important thing. And you only use it once a day. I actually do use it on my body itself as well because I travel a lot. So I'm sitting in airplanes against seats. A million other people have sat on. I'm in hotels a lot. I'm sleeping in beds where thousands of other people have.
Yes.
And so I'm around where a lot of other people have their bodies against it. And so I'm constantly trying to protect my microbiome in my body as well. And so what I do is I just add a couple of drops of this to my lotion, and then I mix it in, and then that's how I moisturize my body.
Nice.
And then I use a drop or two on my face as a normal function. And then if I ever get any little spots like blemishes and things like that, then I will specifically use it on the blemish itself. And it works phenomenally. It's such a relief for the skin to be able to put something on it that rebalances that biome,
Yeah.
and we do that for the gut all the time now. We're using probiotics and prebiotics and all that.
Right.
We need to start paying attention to that with the skin.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I am, as soon as I get off my first, I'm going to go right to sivecare.com, correct?
That's
I'm
right.
going to go there and I'm going to order some.
Yeah, well, and we'll ship you some, and we're excited for you to try it. You're gonna love it. And then we've actually had a lot of success with people with alopecia areata. If they have any hair loss because of it's either autoimmune or fungal type of response. We've had some success with that as well. We don't have a study on it, but we've had some good case trials on it. So anywhere where your skin seems off and irritated, you can use it. And 9 out of 10 times the skin is often irritated or dysfunctional because the microbes are
Right.
the skin, right? So you want to rebalance the microbes.
Well, it is my hope, you guys, and I'm going to put Kiran on the line here to have either him or somebody from some on for IG Live, and probably since this is airing in January, probably in a week or so after you guys have a chance to watch this, and try to get somebody to come on and talk to you specifically about the product. And could we maybe possibly have a giveaway?
Oh, I would love to do a giveaway. Yeah, let's do that.
Martin.
We should think about what that giveaway is.
Okay.
So we should
Well,
do it.
just stay tuned here, you guys.
Yeah, we should pick a few winners. I don't know if you've heard of this brand in Australia, New Zealand area where you are. We have a brand here called Young Goose.
Yes, I get their emails.
You do? Okay, perfect. It's one of my favorite skincare lines.
Right.
Very methodical in their formulation, where really good to support cellular function on the skin. So I use their cleanser, I use their moisturizer along with Siv.
Okay.
And so in the US, we're developing packages with Siv and a couple of Young Goose products. So maybe what we'll do is we'll create a couple of packages and give those away to winners, as a giveaway. We could do a drawing of some sort, and then for anyone that buys it, we'll find an additional giveaway to be able to give them.
You go, guys. You guys stay tuned to IG for all of this information. Kiran, thank you so much for being on. I would love to keep you longer. I know you've got another podcast coming up. If somebody wants to get a hold of you or try Siv now, they don't want to wait. First, how can they contact you or watch you? What can they do? Where can they go?
Yeah, so I try to interact with people as much as I can on social media. So on Instagram, my handle is Kiran Biome, KIRANBIOME. And Facebook, I think you just Kiran Krishnan and you'll see my profile on there. You can also go to YouTube and if you put my name in, you'll see dozens of
Awesome.
hundreds of interviews people have very kindly uploaded
Yeah.
that I've done over the years. And in fact, there's enough now where you can search specific topics with my name. So you can put, Kiran Krishnan SIBO or Kiran Krishnan, eczema. And you'll
Right.
find some. Yeah,
Okay.
I've just done so many talks and interviews, and I'm grateful that people have uploaded all that stuff to YouTube. So it's not my own YouTube channel. It's just you'll find lots and lots of people have uploaded stuff. So,
Okay.
but reach out on social media. I try to interact with people as much as I can.
And if they're wanting to go ahead and try Sieve before we do any kind of giveaways or big Q&As, where can they go?
Yeah, they can go to sivecare.com,
Cool.
SIVCARE.com. The site's been up and live, for about a month. So we're already shipping product, and it's super exciting to be tackling this issue. Leaky skin and making you more beautiful by improving your health.
I like-
Right. That's our whole focus.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm going to put their web address on my links as well. This will also be in the show notes here. So you'll have plenty of access to be able to get to all of those links. So Kiran, thank you once again. And I can't wait for our next time because we're going to keep having you back as many times as you'll come back.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I love being able to educate and empower people with information. I talked about her earlier. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Really.
Thank you very much. That concludes our show. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Becoming Ageless and learning more about leaky skin and how the microbes on our skin are in constant communication with our body and can often be the first line of defense in disease. I'm excited to let you know that Sieve, the probiotic formulated for the skin, which Kiran both discussed and helped to formulate from massive research, is now available to my listeners at a 10% discount by clicking the link in the show notes or at becomingagelesspodcast.com underneath Robyn's faves. Contact for both Kiran and our show are also available in the show notes, and I do hope that you'll consider sharing this episode with your friends. For every download helps us to spread the word about healthy aging. And remember, allowing a number should never dictate our health. After all, every day is the opportunity to become ageless. Thanks, you guys. See you next time.